Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is talking particularly about comparative, but we're also going to be talking about schoolies because I know that schoolies is coming up and you guys are super excited about it. So one of my tips for schoolies, here they are. So you feel like you want to be like everyone else and head to Surfers for schoolies, even though it seems like it's going to be an expensive and poorly thought through choice. Already got your Saturdays off for the boys photo poses rehearsed, where I don't know, you stick out your muscles, your arm muscles somehow. I don't have any. But you feel like they're not quite generic enough. Unsure how many stringer singlets you're going to need, or bottles of Bondi Sands for the girls, or boys. Hey, everybody loves a bit of fake tan. Well, as always, I've got your back. I'm going to have you covered. So, here is Miss Richo's guide to schoolies. Also, my guide to how to write a decent comparison essay. Okay, so here we go. Alright, so you might be thinking, hey, schoolies was a bad idea. Correct. Well done. But you've already paid your deposit, so I guess you're just going to have to make the most of it. So let's try and make the most of it. All right, tip 1, don't be this guy, okay? Note the passed out on the ground, the cans around him. Manage your drinks, mate, and don't wear packaging as headgear. It looks funny, you think it's funny at the time, but the photos say different. Right, but step 1 for your comparison is that you've got to analyse the question. You've got to kind of assess what question you're going to go with. Once you've picked your question, write it out in your own handwriting so that you can think about each word in the question. Okay, highlight your keywords so that you ensure that you address the whole question. I cannot tell you how many times I've marked essays where they've addressed part of the question but not the whole question, and basically that says, well, you can't really score more than, say, at best a 6 because you really haven't addressed the whole question. You've shown a basic understanding of the question, which is 6 on the criteria. But ultimately, you can't score highly because you haven't shown a clear understanding of all of the question. So, this is the example question we're going to work with today. The characters in these texts are powerless to change their lives. Discuss in relation to black diggers and the longest memory. Now, as you can see here, I've already addressed my keywords, which are the characters in the text, and powerless, and change their lives. Okay, so I've highlighted those, and then I've highlighted them throughout the actual presentation to kind of show you how often I'm using keywords, which is all the bloody time. Okay, it's really important to use your keywords and synonyms for those keywords as much as humanly possible. Alright. So, tip 2 for schoolies. Don't let your mates pose for photos that they're going to regret. These days, everything is online, right? It happens, someone takes a photo of it, it's online. And let's be honest, at schoolies, everybody makes poor choices. Don't be the mate that lets your friend film the bad choice. Okay, as you can see, you've got a man who's made some poor choices on our left, and on our right, this is a bad mate. This guy has a lot to answer for. This guy has made a poor choice, but this one has definitely let the mate down. Right, step 2 for comparison. Okay, once you've kind of found your question, you've worked out your key terms, now you've got to work out your contention. And that's pretty easy, okay? So what you need to do is write out your contention, making sure you use all the key terms. If you can't use a key term in the contention, in your writing out of the contention, you're not addressing the whole question. So it's really important that you can use all of those key terms. So here I am with my example question here. The characters in these texts are powerless to change their lives, discuss in relation to black diggers and longest memory. And my contention is there are characters in this text who are powerless to change their lives, okay, due to the social constraints they're faced with, and the internal demons that they must battle. Okay, so here I've kind of developed the idea. So I've got the social constraints, and then I've got internal demons. Okay, so it kind of has taken the question and said yes or no to it, and then it's taken it further. Okay, but it's still addressing the ideas in the question. So, tip 3 for schoolies. Okay, don't try too hard with your selfies. Okay, yes, you should take some selfies because, I mean, it's the 21st century and everybody takes selfies now, except me. I feel really awkward about selfies. I don't know. I feel very conceited when I take them, so I'm not a selfie taker, but I'm not a big photo taker. Anyway, so you've got obviously Exhibit A here, where you've got two girls who are trying to look crazy with the tongue out routine. As we can see, neither of these girls are crazy. They're just trying to seem crazy. And then obviously we've got Exhibit B, which is trying to do a similar thing. Oh, look, I'm so crazy. Yeah, no one's buying it, love. And then obviously we have the two victims over here. We've got the duck pout, which is obviously problematic. We've got the peace sign, which is, you know, cliche at best. And then obviously we have Mr. Gangster over here. And I think we all know that's anything but. So yeah, tip 3. Don't try too hard with your selfies. Tip 3 for comparison, though, is to work out your ideas. Okay, so what I would really recommend, particularly at this stage of the course, is that you stop structuring your pieces through characters and you start structuring them through ideas. Okay, ideas rather than character-based. Okay, now the reason for that is because obviously there are loads of characters, particularly when we're talking about Black Diggers. Black Diggers has a lot of characters, and if you decide to limit yourself to, you know, 3 characters, like character per paragraph, you are really going to box yourself into a very narrow argument, and that is not what those examiners want. I want really kind of broad, dynamic arguments, and that's only really going to come through ideas-based paragraphs, okay? Ensure that each of your arguments addresses a part of a question. If you've got an argument in there that you don't feel like is addressing the question, dump it. Especially when we're talking about the exam, you don't have time to talk about stuff that's irrelevant, okay? You must ensure that each paragraph is definitely relevant, okay? If you have time when you're doing your planning, it's great to list some evidence that you're going to use, you know, while you're in the zone. You know, it's great to list some evidence, but if you don't have time, move forward, okay? I would say in the SAC, I would probably spend 10 minutes planning. I think that's heaps of time, but in the exam, you've probably only got like 5 minutes tops, and you shouldn't use really any more than that. Definitely when you are doing your planning, make sure you write out your question, you write out your contention, you write out your arguments, and then if you have time, then write out you know, the bits of evidence that you plan on using. But if you don't, move forward, okay? So, my contention with this question is, like I said before, the characters in the text who are powerless to change their there are characters in this text who are powerless to change their lives due to the social constraints they're faced with and the demons they battle. Okay? Internal demons they battle. So, these are my ideas. I've kind of got 4. Now, you know, there is no rule that you have to write 3 paragraphs. Okay, I feel like everyone gets really caught up in that. 3 is a nice number, don't get me wrong, I like 3. It kind of looks, you know, quite, you know, substantial. But if you've got 4 ideas, write 4. If you've got 2 really great, really in-depth, I would say on the exam, that's fine. I'd say in our SAC, it's probably a little brief. I'd probably like to see more than that. But, yeah, don't feel like you have to always write 3 paragraphs, okay? Anyway. So having a look at this, my 4 ideas that I'm going to address are, number 1, characters are powerless to change their lives due to racial discrimination. Okay, so notice that I'm powerless to change their lives, and then I'm talking about a reason they're powerless to change their lives. Characters are powerless to change their lives due to perceptions of gender. Okay, so I'm going to address the gender inequality stuff. Characters are powerless to change their lives, and then due to the ingrained belief that they are lesser. Okay, so that's my 3rd argument. And the reason why, so I'm kind of starting off with like the most obvious, and then I'm moving into something a little bit deeper. And then this one is obviously my much more sophisticated one. And then my 4th one, and this is the one I really like, and I feel like it, you know, not just pat myself on the back, but I feel like this one really is a good one to do because it looks at the complexities of the racial stuff that we have in the text and the powerlessness that comes with racism. So the 4th one I'm going to address are characters who feel empowered to seize control over their lives. So that's obviously the question again, just kind of said in a different way. Regardless of boundaries, are punished by people. Oh, why has it done that? Sorry. Oop. No, I don't want to zoom in. Sorry. Okay, my mistake. Sorry, I'm still learning this. I'm using a new program and I haven't quite worked out the kinks yet. So the 4th one says, characters who feel empowered to change their lives regardless of boundaries. So obviously there I'm talking about people like Chapel and Nigel and Mick. Regardless of their boundaries, are punished by the people who truly hold power in their lives. Okay, so looking at that idea of powerlessness, but looking at it as in something that perhaps even if they wanted to change it, they couldn't. Okay, so they're my 4 arguments. If I was kind of in a situation where I had to cull one, I'd probably cull 2. That being said, it would be up to your discretion if you wanted to cull another one that you felt like didn't really do what you wanted it to do. All right. Tip 4. Now, this is an important one, guys, because, you know, I saw you at your Year 11 formals, okay? I know. Tip 4, there is such a thing as too much tan. Too much tan for boys and girls, okay? Keep that in mind. That's all I'm going to say about that one. I feel like the pictures speak for themselves. I feel like you know what I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking to. We'll leave it at that. All right, comparison intros. Now, comparison intros are essentially the same structuring as your intros for section A, so, you know, like a normal text response. So we've got titles, we've got authors, we've got contention, and we've got arguments, okay? Nothing that should surprise or overwhelm you, okay? TACA, as per usual. Yay! Oh, gosh. Check out my handwriting. I'm doing well there. Woo! Ricardo, I'm in competition with you. All right. Okay, so let's look at our example. The inability to seize change in both the novella The Longest Memory and the play I'll start that again. The inability to seize change is explored in both the novella The Longest Memory and the Australian play Black Diggers. Despite obvious differences in context, both texts examine the social constraints and personal demons that can prevent a person from being able to seek more. Playwright Tom Wright and author Fred Daguerre shows that some characters are powerless to change their lives due to discrimination, whereas others are powerless to change their lives due to the ingrained belief that they are lesser. Finally, to demonstrate the depth of powerlessness faced by these characters, both texts include characters who feel empowered to seize control over their own lives, regardless of boundaries, and are punished by people who truly hold power over their lives. Okay, so I've got a few things I want to make comment on. The first one is that I call the text a novella. Okay, the longest memory is a novella. It means a short novel. Okay, the other thing that I've done is I've called it a play. Okay, and not a book, because even though we read it in a book, it's not a book. Okay, it is a play. Then the rest of my contention goes through pretty simply. Okay, with the pink, and then I mention the authors. Easy. Okay, show that some characters are powerless to change their lives due to discrimination. There is my first argument. Okay. And then I've said, whereas others are powerless to change their lives due to the ingrained belief that they are lesser. Now, obviously there I'm talking about people like Whitechapel. Yeah? And then finally, that is my third. Okay? Now, the reason I've structured it that way is because I think this is, argument 1 is my kind of most straightforward answer. I think number 2 is kind of one that explores a little bit deeper. And then I think the third one's good because it really kind of expands the ideas. Okay, so that's why I've structured that in terms of argument 1, 2, and 3. Okay, let's move on. All right, so the next tip is that you do not need to be drinking on schoolies in every photo. Now, what you guys think you look like is a little like this. You know, cool, having fun. I don't know why someone's wearing sunglasses and hats inside, but, you know, that apparently that's what cool people do. I wouldn't know. And this is what real adults think you look like. Yeah. Yep, you look like you're 10. Okay, so just, you know, keep that in mind. You don't need to be drinking in every photo. All right, now comparison layout is pretty straightforward. Basically what you try and do in each paragraph is that you address the idea in both your text A and your text B. Okay, so for instance, I talk about my first idea in the longest memory, and then I talk about it as seen in Black Diggers. And then I do the second one. I give the second idea, I talk about it in the longest memory, and then it in Black Diggers. Third, fourth, etc., 10th, whatever, write a conclusion. It's a basic layout. Intro, paras, conclusion. Nothing really shocking there. All right, so here are my example paragraph ideas. So I've got my first one about the discrimination, powerless to change lives due to discrimination. Then I've got powerless to change lives because they believe they're lesser. And then people who feel empowered to change their lives are punished. Okay, which shows the extent of their powerlessness. Oops, sorry, I moved me instead of circled. Okay, so tip 6 is for the boys, just keep it in mind that your rig does not need to be out 24/7. You are allowed to wear shirts at schoolies, as far as I understand, and in fact, we would kind of encourage it, not just from like, you know, a sun safety perspective, although, you know, also important, but also just, you know, public decency and, you know, our ability to eat food and keep it in our stomachs. Yeah, just something to ponder. Tip 7 is really for everybody. It's a good life tip. Apply sunscreen carefully. Because, you know, what you think may have covered yourself is probably not. I think we can see by the pictures here that there are some bad choices happening. You've got the lovely man who's decided to give himself a bit of a decoration And then we've got some who just plain forgot. And you don't want to be that idiot who turns up on the first day of uni with this kind of situation. It's a bit awkward. This is coverable, but not preferable, and let's be honest, that just looks painful. So yeah, good advice, I think. All right, paragraph structure. Okay, so each of your paragraphs will look pretty much like this. You'll have a topic sentence, just like we do for a text response. You'll have your evidence from text 1. It doesn't really matter which one you choose as text 1, which you choose as text 2. I would go with whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, then explain your evidence from text 1, then give some evidence from text 2, and then you have your explanation from text 2, and then we're adding a new one. Sorry, that should be down there. And then you will compare text 1 and text 2 in regards to the idea, and then link it up. So, let's have a bit more of a look. Okay, so here is, I actually might move myself out of the way. Might be good. Okay, here we go. So, this is my example. Alright, so here's my topic sentence. In both The Longest Memory and Black Diggers, characters are powerless to enact change in their lives due to internal struggles. So I'm actually addressing my second paragraph there. Not that it matters. Then I've got my evidence. I'm obviously going into Black Diggers. In Black Diggers, it is Tommy's mental trauma that prevents him from making something of his life after his experiences in war. At his funeral, this is made clear when the minister states that Tommy lived out the rest of his life as a shadow in a blanket sleeping under a tank that cried so that the town would hear. I hate that quote. It's so sad. Like, I love it, but I hate it. You know what I mean. Tommy's fate, being buried in a pauper's grave without a friend to farewell him, demonstrates Tommy's powerlessness in his life, as he was so debilitated by his trauma that his life consisted of weeping and cowering in fear. The source of this powerlessness is attributed to the incapacitating nature of his post-traumatic stress disorder, acquired after being buried alive at Poitiers. Due to the PTSD he suffered, Tommy had no ability to effect change in his life after the war, as it seemed that surviving day to day was enough of a struggle. Okay, so can you see how what I've done is I've got my evidence from Black Diggers. Now I've explained how that evidence proves my topic sentence. And now I'm going to just kind of do a little bit more evidence and a little bit more explanation. Moreover, his PTSD found him unable to sleep within walls and taking refuge in a bottle, okay, which would have prevented him from regaining a place in society and bettering his situation. Okay, so I've got evidence, I've got explanation, I've got a little bit more evidence, and I've got another explanation here. Okay, now what I do is I switch over to talking about text 2, The Longest Memory. So, Daguerre's protagonist, Whitechapel, also must deal with his own internal demons, as he has been indoctrinated to believe that he cannot ever dream of a free life. His determination never to dream about Africa, and his refusal to imagine Chapel's children would be free, demonstrates how brainwashed he is. It is this brainwashing that prevents him from seeing that he deserves to have freedom and should be able to have control over his own life. So again, we've got some more evidence from my second text, and then I've got a little bit of, and then I've got a little bit of explanation there. Okay. So pretty much so far it just looks like, you know, like a text response essay, topic sentence, evidence explanation, evidence explanation, evidence explanation, whatever. Okay. Here's where it gets slightly different. Okay. This lovely bit, our orange bit, our comparison. Okay, although Whitechapel's internal struggle is self-reinforced, the belief that he deserves to be enslaved is a product of the ideas he's been indoctrinated in, and therefore, like Tommy's PTSD, is not under his own control. Additionally, Whitechapel's internal struggle at the end of his life is catalysed by a traumatic event of his son's murder, and thus could be viewed as similar to Tommy in that they are both weighted down by the memories of their past. Okay, so basically so that's our comparison stuff. And then I've got my link, just like usual. Both Tommy and Whitechapel's mindsets are what prevents them from feeling they can make changes in their own lives. That's my link. So instead of doing teal, we're doing T E E E E. Sorry. Topic sentence: evidence. Explanation, evidence, explanation, and then there should be one more. Oh yeah, evidence, explanation, and then a big lot of comparison, and then a link. Okay? So, the only real difference between well, there are a couple. The only real differences between a text response essay paragraph and a comparison essay paragraph is that you'll have two texts to talk about, so you'll need to layer your evidence and explanations, and then this bad boy, our comparison bit. So what we're actually doing is tickle. If you want to be, if you like having the pattern of letters, it's tickle now instead of teal. But it's basically the same thing. All right, make sense? Excellent. Well, I can't hear you. I'm assuming. The other thing that I want to make clear is notice how throughout I've got these red words. They're all of our keywords again. Remember I said that in the PowerPoint what I'll do is every time I use a keyword, I'll put it in red. Or if I use like a substitute for a keyword. So if you have a look, I've got keywords in my topic sentence. I've even got some in my evidence. I've got some in my explanation. I've got more in my explanation later on. And then I also have it in my comparison, but I haven't actually underlined them because I forgot. And then again in my link. So basically you need to sprinkle those words in every part of tickle. Okay, you cannot just kind of forget about those words. You need to keep using them. The reason for that is because it helps the examiner understand that you're actually answering the question. Okay, so by using them, you're actually giving them a little wave and going, yes, I'm answering the question, I'm doing what you want. Okay, and it makes them go, well, they've answered the question, so they're at least a 5 out of 10. Okay, it's a really great way to ensure that the examiner understands what you're trying to achieve. All right, so here is my next tip. My next tip is don't just hang out with your boyfriend or girlfriend on schoolies. If you insist on going to schoolies, the whole point of it is to hang out with your friends and to make new friends, not to hang out with your boyfriend. Not only is it a really boring way to spend a week away, but also, I mean, makes everyone so uncomfortable. Oh, no one wants to feel like a third wheel. So, try and spend some time with the friends. I would actually recommend not going to schoolies with your boyfriend or girlfriend, just because, this is probably the only time that you're going to be able to go away with all of your friends. So, just enjoy it. And, you don't want to look like any of these people. The embarrassing macking on in the middle of a festival, the whipped boyfriend having to sun cream, his girlfriend, the third wheel boyfriend, the possessive girlfriend, or, you know, this scenario, orcs. All right, conclusion. This is the easiest bit because you've pretty much already written one anyway, okay? Conclusion, same stuff as your intro, okay? Just reword it. Title, author, contentions, argument. That's it. Easy. All right, here are some more tips before we go. Tip 9, don't get a tattoo. You are 18 and you make poor choices. I'm not going to lie. You guys, you know, almost look like adults now, but you don't make good choices. So you should definitely think about maybe leaving those tattoos until later. I think these demonstrations of bad tattoos really sum that up for you. And tip 10. Now this is probably my best piece of advice. If you see a news crew at schoolies, run. This is one instant that your mum will not be proud to see you on the news. Okay? Do not be on the news. That is not going to impress your mum. Okay? And that's it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's helped a little bit. Now remember, the paragraph structuring is very, very similar to what you are supposed to do with text response. The only difference is we're adding that C. Okay? So that's all from me. I hope you had a lovely day, and I'll see you later. All right, bye.